Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. This video is a very early preliminary look at quite a large project. This customer is contracted for me to build what is in essence going to be a plateau. This is going to be scaled for, I think they're 64mm miniatures. I'll take a look later, and I'll show you those miniatures a little later on. He sent me some to use for scaling purposes. But we'll take a look at that in a future video. At this point, I'm trying to work on one of the very earliest features of it that are that's required to be done before I can actually start putting all the foam together. And that is to have an ancient entrance in one side of this cliff of the plateau. The plateau is quite large. It's going to be 2 feet It's going to be 2 feet tall, and it's going to be roughly 5, I think, by 3, roughly, something like that. So one side is going to have an ancient entrance. All right, it's a little generic at this stage. And originally it was discussed to be maybe something dwarvish. So I've done some research on Celtic knots and had some trouble with that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I also realized the customer mentioned putting elvish archers around it from the Lord of the Rings, and so that kind of opened up the theme of it a little bit. So what I've done is I've tried to put together some ideas for the entrance and how to adorn the sides, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'd like to light the interior of it. And there's talk about having moving gates, you know, sort of pins coming, you know, in and out to close and open the barrier, you know, sort of be like almost like you know, you get what's the word I'm looking for? Pierced? I don't know. Stabbed? Run through by, you know, spikes coming out from within the entranceway. So I've done some research on servos and some other ideas and linkages. That's going to be for a future video. But at this stage, I really want to try to get get a handle on lighting and LEDs. So I'm also going to talk about that. I'm going to show you some of the things that I've been working on, and then I'm going to tap into maybe somebody from the viewing audience for a little bit of help, because I'm actually pretty stuck and I'd like to get this project moving. The customer's been very patient while I work on this, but if I can't get it going within the next week or two, I'm going to set the lighting and maybe the moving parts aside, and we'll just get building. So let's come in, take a look. I've been gabbing long enough, and I'll show you the entrance, some ideas for that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the lighting option. So this was my first mock-up of the entrance, and thinking dwarvish, you know, I was looking online at some pictures of entrances. Maybe I'll include one here in the corner. And, you know, I wanted something, you know, fairly, what's the word I'm looking at, geometric. And then I wanted to inlay, not inlay, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess have a raised embossed Celtic pattern on this strip on the inside here, plus some other adornments. I have some plans for different ways to accent this. Well, first of all, this was too small. This is about 6 inches by about, what are we looking at here? By about 7. And after looking at the figures and seeing the amount of space needed, I needed to do another one. So before I show you that, I want to talk a little bit about how I tried to go about making a pattern for the new one. This is a punch. This is a Martha Stewart punch. It's magnetic, and you can see the die here, and then the blades come through that. And the nice thing about it is it's got line-up keys, which actually don't work very well, but if you're very careful and you use some of the guides here, you can line them up to punch this pattern, which makes a pattern that looks like this. Whoop! There we go. Oh, so we have some nice contrast. And then, by successively punching these in rows, you can create strips with this pattern. Now, this pattern is not what I really wanted. But what I liked about it is that with some careful modifying of it in terms of cropping out sections of it and then using those, you can really change the look of this pattern quite a bit to get something that would, you know, be sort of, I don't know. Well, I'll show you in a second. I was going to say sort of Celtic, but I don't really think it even comes close, actually. So that's one of the things for this video, is to show my idea about that. So before I leave this piece, just because it kind of represents the idea a little bit better, my original plan was to have this, and then let's just say I cut this in half, and I laid this in. Then this would be raised here. Now I was thinking about trying to do 2 or 3 layers thick. This is a cardstock, and I've tried to use the punch on thin styrene, 0.015 styrene. It can't handle that, and really the cardstock is about the thickest you can go through with this. So I was going to layer them up so that I could get a higher relief from this, and that's not really very easy to do because cutting these all together in the exact same way every time so that they overlay perfectly is very difficult. I don't know if you could hear that. That's George. Hear that? He's nudgy right now. So, so what I did, let's take a look at the entrance then. All right. So here's the, whoa, I gotta back up. Good Lord. It is big. Let's pan it out here. Okay, that's enough. All right, you can get a sense here. All right, so just to give you a sense of the dimensions, it's nice to check in with the customer in case I'm getting really way off here. So now it's about 10 inches by, what are we looking at, by 10 by 10. But that provides a much wider opening, so the entrance is a 6-inch opening, but the sides are actually the same. Well, they're a little bit bigger, but not much. No, they're basically the same as the original entrance. So my thought was to perhaps lay in a pattern like this. So you can see here I've punched them in sequential order, you know, one after the other, cut out the outside strip, and then lay that in. I kind of like that pattern, and I think even with 1 layer deep, it's going to give enough relief that when I paint it, I can pick that out and it's going to pop. I didn't want to carve it in for 2 reasons. One, carving in is going to be really hard. I actually tried to carve, 1 second, I'll be right back. So to give you an idea here, thank you for your patience, you know, a foam about this thick, even a little bit thinner. I was going maybe half this thick. This is maybe, oh, 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so I was going about 1/8 of an inch. Trying to carve out, I had a Celtic knot. I sprayed the pattern on with acrylic paint using a template, and then tried to cut it out with a X-Acto blade. Wow, that's a lot of time to produce a pattern as detailed as this. So I left that idea and I started looking for these punches. So that's my idea. Now, there are alternative patterns that are possible. One alternative pattern that, whoops, let's take this off for a second, is to have the sort of the center of the pattern, if you will, just to give you a little sense of that. Oh, what did I do with my original? Oh my gosh, well, use your imagination. So this is the center of it, all right? So you can produce a pattern like that, which actually is a little too circular in my mind, but I thought I'd show it just so you could get a sense of that. And you could also produce a different pattern. George. Hey, get. Cat. So then you could produce a pattern, something like this, which is, George, hey! Get down. Yeah, I had a feeling he'd be in this video. He's really hoping I play with him, which I'll have to do after I get done with this. Anyway, which is a very, you know, sort of different pattern. Now, I'm going to be honest, and I think these have just a flavor of maybe more Asian than Nordic, but it depends on the, you know, what your personal taste is and how much you're willing to go outside of some traditional patterns. Anyway, that's my thought. And then what I'd like to do is do a pattern like this, so I'll glue it in, but then I'd like to actually do an outside strip along this so that this is 2 tiers stepped out, and it'll come down into the center trough, and in the center trough will be the embossing. Now, the patterns are kind of tricky because I can't quite figure out a way where I can cut it and carry it all the way around because of the complex shape of this pattern. There is no way to form a corner where all the points will join properly, and believe me, I've spent several hours fiddling with this. I don't think there's an easy way to do it. So what I'd like to do is actually take it, if there's, let's say I'm using this, This will be customer decision oriented here. And then I could actually put a little platform here, maybe something that sticks out with maybe an icon resting on it, or a small miniature, small scale miniature to look like a little statue, or maybe a torch or something like that, a brazier. All sorts of options there. But that's the kind of idea. So I can top this, carry this across, somehow trim that to finish, whether it's this pattern on the top here or this pattern rotated or something like that. So for customer reference here, we're going to call this pattern 1, we're going to call this pattern 2, we're going to call that pattern 3, so he can say go with 2 or 1, or don't use any of them. If I need to go some other direction, just say so and we'll do that. So you can see here I've already cut several sheets as part of this layered effect, and I'll be using those to create the trough as well as the the raised areas, although I might use styrene. Okay, that's down the road. Anyway, so that's the thought on the entrance. This is the preliminary stage on the entrance. Let's talk about lighting next. My thought was that inside of the entrance, all right, there'll be doors. Doors are going to go, and they're going to be fixed open. Spikes will be, hopefully, if I can figure out how to do it, will be going like this. My original thought was to have it transverse the entire opening, but now it's so big, depending on how I play with it, I might just have them meet in the middle with a slight overlap rather than actually, my original idea was to have them all the way across and interlocking like that. There's more work to be done with that. But wouldn't it look great if inside, and it's like let's say it's like tiled walls and floors, and it goes in just not too far, 4, 5, 6 inches, something like that, which is small for this project. And then there's a T section. And hidden behind in the T section are flickering torch lights that vary in their intensity with a random pattern, so it doesn't look like, it's always there. Maybe somebody's walking around in the back, to give it a little bit of more interest than the standard. George, cat, stop hitting the lights. To give it more, a little bit more interest than the standard candle. Cut that apart, or even keep it the same, stick it in the corner with a little button to turn it on, and then it'll glow in the background. I want to have something a little more easy to access, especially because it's going to be behind. So I'd like to bring the battery and the wiring and the circuit board outside of that entrance so that it could be serviced if needed. And I'd like to work on colors that are a little bit richer than the standard flicker of the candle flame, although I need to look, somebody mentioned to me before anybody mentions it, I need to look at some firelight against a surface so I can pick out those colors. I'm going to do that very soon. So to get that lighting in the back and have control over its flicker rate, which I would like control of, the options to alter colors, and the options to even play with all of those variables. I can't just use a standard, store-bought candle and hack it apart. So, oh boy, here we go. Yeah. So I bought, a bunch of resistors, capacitors, transistors, and I looked online for several schematics for how to make a fading LED, because I wanted that pulsing so that I could control that. So let's plug this in and see. Now right now, this is, all right, wait a minute. Let's get a little closer here, and maybe I'll even, let's see if I can make it just a pinch. All right, well, you can see that they're lighting. That's all you really need to see here. Don't worry about this stuff. I'm just storing it here. This was based roughly on a schematic, which I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll put a picture of the schematic right here. Looking at that, it took me several hours to wire this because it's very finicky, and if you have one wire in the wrong spot, one hole. This is a breadboard for those of you who don't know. This is a capacitor, this is a resistor, a transistor, these are resistors. It's been finicky, but I want to learn more about this. So for instance, I'm going to take these out real quick. Let's take these out. And we will put in a standard red bulb. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Did I put it in the wrong spot? Oh. Oh. No? Wait. Oh, whoops. I got to put it in the right spot. There we go. All right. Now, let's see. All right. See that? See how it's pulsing? All right. So, first of all, that's dim as hell. I can't put that in behind anything. So I need to increase its intensity of brightness. That's something else I want to control. If I want to ratchet up the brightness, how do I do that? I can adjust its dimming rate by adjusting the kinds of, or the ratings of the resistors, which I've been playing with. You can change the capacitor. I'm not even sure what a transistor does. I know a little bit about it. I taught middle school science, so I have some very vague concepts of electricity that get me to this stage, but I need more help. I don't want to be at this stage. I want to control it in a way that I feel comfortable that I can manage it to produce a really bright red bulb that fades with a 2-second delay, something like that, right? Or I can use flicker bulbs. These bulbs flicker on their own, and by using a flicker bulb, I can fade the flicker. So if you watch this flicker, it doesn't flicker at the same rate all the time. Every now and then, see that? It has a double pulse, right? So I can create some random flickering using a flicker bulb within this, or a flashing bulb. There's all kinds of LEDs. This is the kind of stuff I want to get a handle on to light things with. All right, so let's zoom out and we'll finish this up. So taking a look at that, you get a sense of where I'm trying to go. But I don't know a lot of the basics about how these components interact in ways that I can control them. For instance, you know, how much can I ramp up the voltage to increase the brightness of the bulb? What's the safe limit for an LED? How much voltage can it take? Or is it wattage? You know what I mean? It's like all these little persnickety things. And I have you know, what is it? It's like Circuitry for Dummies or something book. I bought years ago, actually, before I even started TerranScapes. I mean, it's really old. And I was thumbing through that, and it's like, it's not really super helpful. I mean, it is a little bit. George, stop rubbing the tripod. Go, go. Cat. So, what I'm looking for, okay, here we go, is I'm wondering if there's somebody out there who knows their electronics. I have a friend who really knows LEDs. He did some fantastic stuff, and I'm going to try to get him to maybe help me. But I'm wondering if there's somebody in the audience who could kind of give me like a 1-hour tutorial on some of these key concepts that we could like Skype, video Skype, and I could show you what I'm doing, and I could pick your brain, and you could pick my brain, and I could at least show you where I'm weak, and maybe you could give me a little, you know, quick lesson on a few concepts. I don't know if there's anybody out there who'd be willing to do that, but I figured it doesn't hurt to ask. I would be super in your debt, and you know, if you're a formal educator in electronics and you want to help me out and you feel like, you know, you'd like to do something reciprocal, you know, I don't know what you charge for tutorial, you know, tutoring, but maybe we could swap terrain pieces for tutoring, something like that. I might be willing to consider that as well. I really, really want to get these electronic concepts in my head in a way where I can play with these at a medium level. Not advanced, but medium. I want to know how to not burn out circuits, how to, you know, affect the flow of current through components. What does a transistor do? Somebody in the comments is going to say, oh, it's a switch, it's an amplifier. Yeah, but what does that mean? You know, like, how does that work? I don't know. And so the science guy in me is like, I want to know how it amplifies, and I think if I understand that concept, I will be able to then tinker with it in a way that doesn't destroy it, or, you know, and produces the effect that I'm looking for. So, I'm putting that call out there. I'm afraid of doing this because I'm afraid my comment section is going to get flooded by people who are going to be trying to give me tips on electronics. So I'm going to ask you to steer away from that. That you know, unless you have a good resource that you think a newbie could grasp and get into. I mean, I can't open up a college electronics book and get that information into my head in a week so I can start working on this project. Customer's been very patient in letting me do this exploring, but if I can't get this under my belt soon, I'm going to put it and I'm going to shelve it for now. work on it on the side and just go with a more traditional layout for it. Maybe I'll take the candles and I'll stick them in the back so something flickers, and we'll keep it simple. I'm dreading when the servos get here. That's a whole nother thing to look into, but we'll take it one at a time. They're coming from Hong Kong. They should be here any day, but they're not. Little unusual video. Never done this before, so no pressure on anybody, you know. But if you're willing to Skype with me for an hour and sit down and chew LEDs over with me, I would be in your debt. And if not, we'll progress from there. So I've been really grateful to all of the support and the feedback that I get from all of my viewers. Lots of links and projects to look at and ideas and concepts. And so this is taking it one level further than I ever have before. So it feels like untried ground, but who knows what fruit that tree might bear. So thank you once again for joining me. I do appreciate it. And keep your eye on the channel. Once this cliff plateau thing is underway, it's a lot of foam and a lot of carving and a lot of features on it. It's going to be on the ocean, so I'll be doing a beach surrounding it, but no water. So there's going to be lots to look at. So definitely stay with me for the upcoming weeks as I start making some progress on that project. And I'll talk to you later. So looking at that, right, I need to learn a lot of things, and quite frankly, I have tried to read electronic books before. George is now rubbing the tripod, that's why it's vibrating. And, you know, I'm a... Hey! Cat off screen. Oh my God, stop. Start that again.